All right, and welcome back to the Prometheus Deep Dive, a CNC podcast. And today we're here to talk about episode 4, Natural Woman of season 2 of Prometheus. And today my co-host is Tawni. Tawni was a close ally of mine in my last game that I played, and she's also a very experienced veteran of these org games. I'd say so. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
All right, so let's kind of
11 p.m.
Let's dive right into it. So we finally saw Team Guyan lose their immunity challenge, and we saw a Maddie boot today. Mm-hmm. So let's just dive right into it. What did you think about Maddie and everything leading up to this point?
So, okay, I remember whenever I was watching the episode the first time through, I actually messaged you, like, because I was excited that we finally got to see Guyan. And then we get to their little, like, talking session, and there's not a lot of talking going on. And, like, so what sucks is the only person who I know anything of on Guyan is Josh, because I've played a game with him. And so it really sucks that I really could not get too much of, like, anyone's, like, gameplay or personality, because they were all texting each other instead of physically talking, which that did get brought up by, I don't remember who, but one of them did mention something. I think it was like during
Antonio
Temple. Yeah. That it's like, we want to actually show them something. And I'm like, yes. And so it's like, it sucks because I was so excited to finally see them. And then that's all I did is I just saw them.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. So Antonio mentions it first. Bloody then says something, and CJ, I think, also says something as well.
Yeah, they all like bounced off of each other.
Yeah, because the crazy thing is that this was the first time in season 2 where we pretty much did not have a lot of usable footage. We essentially had a little bit over a half hour worth of footage, and pretty much all the talking you saw in their teams was pretty much all the footage. Like, they really were just dead silent. And it was so hard to construct a narrative out of that, so I had to rely heavily on their confessionals.
Yeah, it's like what just kind of sucks in the sense of, like, it, even though, so like the other episodes, because the other team obviously kept losing, so you're going to focus on them. It's like, I feel like we missed so much of, like, what was happening whenever they were back at their campsites or whatever, and being able to use that time to interact. So it's like, whenever we actually do jump into their stuff, it's just like, okay, like, where are the alliances? Like, I remember there was something about, I think, the River Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I didn't make that up. Great. But it's like, okay, like, there's that, like, I remember that being touched on, but it just sucks because it's like, I'm sure Maddie is great, but I don't know who he is. Therefore, I'm like, I can't feel really anything about him leaving. And it sucks.
Yeah, I think that definitely is kind of an issue, which we'll just have to kind of deal with in future seasons. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that did happen in the previous episodes is they were just getting along on camera. They were just goofing off, having fun, which is what we saw for Team Aaron this episode. But Maddie, we give Maddie some confessionals in the first couple episodes. Maddie's a very expressive personality. So from, a lot of the stuff that we've been seeing, I was not myself surprised that Maddie was the first boot. But yeah, is there anything you think you could speak on Maddie or no?
I mean, he has a great voice. I can say that.
So what I will say about Maddie is, though, Maddie is definitely more of a game-focused player, even though Maddie does very much have a good social game. Maddie tends to kind of go into game bot mode, which I think is his real downfall. And had Team Guyan gone to the temple way earlier in the game, I think we could have been looking at a way different boot in the beginning. Because Maddie had made, good strategic connections with people. So that's as much as I can, without going into too much about certain other things. But that's as much as I will say about Maddie. Maddie was definitely a delight to see in this game. Very expressive, constantly making these really goofy faces, especially in prior episodes. But let's kind of touch upon some of the other people. So, what do you think about Team Guyon in general?
I think I like them. Like I said, it's just kind of hard to say, like not really seeing too much of them, but like Bloody, I'm like very excited to see her actually kind of do something in a way for once. Because especially with her being like a super fan of season one, it's like I'm like now that they finally like lost the challenge, you can kind of see how her brain is working. You can see the wheels turning because she finally has to actually do something. Um, and then, oh, who was it? Like, and I do wish that, like I said, Josh is like the one person that I know, like in the entire cast. And it's like, I know like how he works. And it just, he's like so quiet. And I think that he would have been like the person that probably would have been first boot had they gone earlier, at least from my perception of things potentially. Just because he is kind of more reserved. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I know I'm just kind of like rambling at this point.
No,
but,
ramble on, ramble on.
Okay. I'm just trying. I'm so bad with names. I'm just trying to remember as they like pop into my brain. But Tracy, it's like I almost wish that like how like the coup just happened over with the other tribe. Like I almost wish that like you didn't kind of go based off of age, which I get it because elder, not that they're old, but like with how like she was talking like during like their little tribe time, like I really want to know like I want to see her play because it's just kind of like how so bad with names. The other person on the other tribe like hadn't been able to Jocelyn?
Jocelyn. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm so proud of myself. How like she hadn't really been able to play the entire time, and now she finally, well, ish, finally gets to play now. But I just want to like pick her brain. I want to pick Tracy's brain so badly. I want to see what she does when she can like do something.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting though, because I feel like what you get of Tracy is what she really is like. Tracy is the oldest player. Tracy's never played one of these games before. And it's very interesting having this sort of juxtaposition of Jocelyn versus Tracy, whereas we've seen in the previous episodes, because obviously Team Aaron is constantly going to the temple the first three episodes. Tracy, right up front, it like says everything. She's like, I think it should be Maddie, and I think it should be Maddie for A, B, C, and D. Jocelyn doesn't really give that. The only time Jocelyn ever gave that was when it was a debate of Mark versus Jeffrey back in episode 2.
Yeah.
But so it's very interesting. This is the second, third, fourth time we've seen two teams who are complete opposites of each other. And Tracy, is definitely showing that she is way different from Jocelyn in how she treats her elder position. But aside from the fact that, like, yes, part of it's on theme, season of the elders, it also comes down to, and I feel like you should, as many people should be able to attest to this, that a lot of times in these games, you will have the older players who are easy first boots. Yeah. So it kind of protects them from that, kind of shakes things up and makes people have to take a different approach than they might normally do.
Yeah, I remember whenever like the cast reveal was happening, whenever Tracy did come up, I'm just like, no, they're going to get rid of her so early. And then when you're like, okay, Tracy's safe, I'm like, yes. But it's like, I'm like kind of curious, like if when she no longer has safety, is she going to like kind of like pull back on how like blunt she is to like, because I wonder if she'll like kind of see that like, oh, maybe being like as blunt isn't necessarily the best thing all the time. It might work for her. Who freaking knows? I mean, you do, but like like I'm just kind of interested to see like where she goes from where she is right now.
Yeah, it's always very interesting. You know, you will have some people that are very blunt and it works against them. Now granted, Tracy is safe because she is the team elder, but it's interesting. People seem to very much like her personality. You do see Michael on a couple occasions in his confessionals say that he likes Tracy. He thinks Tracy's funny, especially with her just straight up coming out and saying, Tasha, your Wi-Fi sucks. I don't want to play with you, you know? So it sometimes works for people, but also at the same time, we then have Tasha, who's mentioned Tracy a couple times over the past couple episodes. It's not quite, you know, sitting well with her. But yeah, let's kind of touch upon some of the other Team Guyon people. So what are you thinking about either like Michael, Antonio, or Aaron? Aaron was the other possible name to be the next boot.
Aaron. Yeah, okay. I felt so bad for her. Granted, I challenge. So I might be jumping like around from your little schedule here. But I can't begin to explain to you how frustrated I was watching everyone do puzzles. I will say, like, word searches, that's not my thing. I am completely with them taking like 20 minutes to do that because it hurts my brain. I think I'm dyslexic sometimes. I get it. But the freaking jigsaw puzzles, it was only 50?
Mm-hmm.
Only 50. That is such. Maybe it's just because like I'm used to playing orgs, and if I'm given a jigsaw, it's like 100 pieces at least, or like rotating pieces. And I'm like, were they allowed to do the arrange button? Like,
they
did
could.
you give them? So you didn't, like, you were just like, here's the puzzle, do the puzzle, send me.
Yeah. I mean, I think of the two people that ended up doing the jigsaw puzzle, neither of them were probably used to that site. Which, I mean, that site is kind of a staple. Yes, it does kind of give people an advantage, but also like this is another thing that you can discuss when you're trying to strategize for the challenge. Like, hey, 90% of all orgs use the same jigsaw site. Like, I could do it because I could probably quickly get through it. But the funny thing is all of our challenges, especially during our day one stuff, we make these challenges easy enough that it'll create some time, but no one should necessarily struggle on them.
Yeah.
So I was actually stunned when people were taking, like just looking at my notes, because we did 3 samples of the word search before the season started, because we like to test all of our challenges out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it only took, I think the longest time was like 3 minutes to get finish the word search and complete the phrase. You know, looking at my notes, it took Aaron roughly 12 minutes to finish the word search. It took Tasha about 8 minutes, which was just way longer than we ever thought.
Yeah, and then I remember like at one point it was like even after Tasha had sent in her completed puzzle, you're like, it's been 2 minutes and we still have yet to receive the password. I'm just like, I feel like the password's probably pretty visible because I'm assuming it was like hidden in the word search that just wasn't part of the word, right? Or like part of the words. So it's like, what letters are left that make a word?
Yeah, you can actually go back in the challenge and like hit the pause button when I show the entire thing. I mean, I get, you know, everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses. Totally get that. But yeah, I guess just all around was not anyone's real strength, except Ben. Ben finished his
with the slide puzzle, which looked like it took him what, like 45 seconds, maybe?
I think his like official time was like roughly about 1:20 to 1:30.
Which even is still a long time for a 3x3 with people that know how to do slide puzzles, but apparently he could have taken like 10 minutes and been fine.
I mean, yeah, he could have. Well, the crazy thing is Maddie was catching up on the jigsaw. He was not that far from Jenny. Honestly, had Aaron not taken so much time on the word search, because there's about a 4-minute difference from when they submitted their final passwords. If Aaron would have even potentially taken about 2 or so minutes less, there could have been a really good chance that it would have been literally down to seconds. But I mean, it is what it is at this point. the entire time, I remember when we were filming, the entire time I was like looking at Josh because Josh was pacing around almost the entire challenge. And I was like, Josh is getting ready to destroy this slide puzzle, but he never even got the chance. I'm curious if he would have been able to get it quickly, which I feel like he would have, because it is just a 3x3. It's not that hard.
Yeah, if you understand the concept of the slide puzzle, like you'll get it within like a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Max. So yeah, I like what just sucks, what kind of sucked for them when it came to the challenges, the elders are the ones that like picked who did what. And did they have time to, because from what it looked like, they didn't have time to talk about who they would put in there, right? Like they just had to send it in.
Yeah, so what happens is when we have a champion modifier, the elder immediately selects the players to compete, but then from there, they're given a minute to strategize. So like, they chose, Tracy chose Maddie, Aaron, and Josh. So then from there, those three people, they have about a minute to strategize who takes what.
Yeah, so if they didn't have the conversations prior about who could do like what puzzles, Tracy was just, I guess, assuming just kind of picking semi-blindly of who to put where.
Sort of. We actually saw, I believe it was last episode, Team Guyan, they did talk about this during episode 1. They had talked about what everyone's strengths were, but it's also a matter of, okay, at 10 o'clock in the morning, do I remember what conversation I had with 7 other players about their strengths and weaknesses? And clearly it worked out last round when they did the game of, essentially telephone. But it didn't work out this time. And Team Aaron had never really discussed anyone's strengths and weaknesses. I think the most that they had talked about was that most of them weren't really comfortable with puzzles, which then I believe Tasha brings up during the second team time segment that like, it's ironic. The challenge we ended up winning was the thing we all thought we'd be the worst at.
Yeah. Like because like normally like with like a long-term org, whenever you have a puzzle thing like that, even if like someone was putting someone somewhere, like typically you have people volunteering like, oh, I can do a slide puzzle. Oh, I can like good at jigsaws. Like, because had someone put me on a slide puzzle not knowing it was going to be a 3x3, I would have lost my shit. Like, I can do a 3x3, give me a 4x4, and it's all over. Like, I'm never finishing that slide puzzle. So it's like, I would be so upset. I'm just like, even like whenever I was watching it, like it would kind of suck, like getting voted out based off of your performance on that particular competition if you did not get to choose like what you did.
Yeah. But I mean, the people were chosen and they at least chose what they thought they'd be good at. So, but there is a moment in which Bloody does say, it's very brief, where she's just like, I think at this point we're not really looking at challenge performances, so it was going into, because if we're looking at challenge performances, I mean, looking at the time, Aaron really 100% should be the boot. She took more than about 65% of the total time of the entire challenge just to do her portion of the puzzle relay. But I mean, I think that speaks to, in a way, it speaks a little bit more to Erin's game, beyond that challenge that she was able to survive. Now, nothing is ever a true solo effort. It makes up of many different people, but we had, and it's kind of crazy that their first time at the temple, we had a 3-4 split. Like, it was very close to Erin being the one that went home.
Because what was Bloody the actual swing vote in that?
Yeah, essentially she was. Because it was Erin and Michael who were super tight. They were clearly going to vote for Maddie. Then you have on Maddie's side, you have Maddie, CJ that are super close and aren't going to move. Josh was pretty close with Maddie as well, but we did see that in Josh's confessional, Josh was like, I think I might have to throw my vote and get rid of Maddie, even though I really want to work with him. But essentially, he stuck with them. Michael and Antonio were talking about keeping Aaron, so it's 3-3. The only person you have left is Bloody, who says she has no clue what she's going to do. You know, she said that literally moments before the temple started, because that's when those confessionals are recorded.
Okay.
So essentially, Bloody is the swing vote. And honestly, looking at this sort of thing on paper, it makes the most sense that Bloody votes this way. Because if Aaron is gone, there is a good chance that outside of Maddie's alliances, Bloody would be the next to go.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Dang, it's like I don't get how like they don't look stressed out, because just thinking about, like, I know sometimes they definitely look stressed out, but I would say like maybe I'm just not looking at them in like the split seconds that they're looking okay, because I'm like just thinking about having to make, with how quickly like the rounds actually go once you get past the challenges and stuff like that, like having to make the decision, the little talk time that they do have. And even kind of like when Maddie and Bloody were left in the breakout room and like you had to like yell at them to like get their butts in the temple, like just kind of like how Bloody said something about like if she had like 5 minutes or even like 2 minutes, I think it was Bloody that said it.
Yeah, Bloody said it.
That something like could be different. And it's just like, and that's just so true.
Mm-hmm. But the crazy, yeah, the crazy thing though is at this point in time, by the end of this cycle, they had been playing the game for about 6.5 hours.
Oof.
So, I mean, yeah, granted, they're not best friends. They don't know each other's lives inside and out. But of that 6.5 hours, that team mostly just had nothing to do but get to know one another. You know, maybe not on a strategic level because they never had to test loyalties and stuff like that, but they definitely had time to get to know each other. But it's interesting though, you know, you bringing up, you know, people looking stressed out. Two people, especially if you ever saw like the full confessionals of Bloody and Antonio, they were 10 times more stressed out than I ever thought they'd be. Because when I did their interviews, I was like, okay, I'm interviewing like really experienced orgers. Like these people know their game. They're going to be cut fucking throat. But being at the temple for the first time for them, they look fucking shell shocked. They looked awful. Bloody looks like, especially in her voting confessional, she practically looks like she's going to throw up. And I'm really curious. So a tidbit that didn't really come across in the game because we kind of edit out some of the other org conversations is that Bloody and Antonio are actually from the Discord community. Okay. And I believe more specifically the community that they're from within Discord, they don't do video chat games. It is all text-based, which in my mind is much easier to just lie, be two-faced, and blindside people. Mm-hmm. So I think for them, it might have been shell shock to be dealing with people's emotions and more face-to-face.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely see that because whenever I made the transition from text-based to going to even like voice call and video call, like there's a big difference from like how like you're used to lying like in person, like little white lies here, there, whatever, to like having to do it like in a game sense like this. And if it's something that you're definitely not used to and something that you're having to do over a very quick period of time to where like, especially if you don't know like your own tells to try to like pull them back a little bit, like they're going to be very easy to see. And I think, was it Antonio as well that mentioned something about how like maybe that's why people aren't talking on video as much as like, was it Antonio or was it Michael? One of them had said something about like, I think it was during Temple where you did it at our confessional where they were like, people may not be talking through the video chat as much because they don't want to give away their tells.
Someone says that in episode 1, but it might be Antonio in this episode as well, because I do go to Antonio in reference to like you mentioned right before Temple started that nobody was talking, which means
okay.
So it probably was Antonio. But yeah, I mean, I've never played a text-based game, and honestly, I don't think I ever will. Part of this experience for me is playing face-to-face, getting to know people. I mean, hell, that's half the reason I play these games is to get to know people. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, hell, I would have never met you. You live across the country, like I would have never met your favorite person, Mark. Mark lives over in the UK. So, but that aside, yeah, it's very interesting. I felt like they were shell shocked. And it's definitely something I wanted to bring up during the podcast because they both definitely seem shook. They looked so shaken and especially bloody. Like I said, she looked like she was going to throw up. So,
yeah, just as a whole, they all seem pretty calm, cool, and collected, but it's also, I guess, kind of like editing as well. And just also knowing, because I feel like you for sure have seen me in very stressed out situations. So it's like, I do the same thing even with playing minis. So it's just kind of like not seeing them like as a complete like pulling their hair out in every single frame is just like mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. See, for me, minis, you don't even, in my opinion, you don't even really have much time to think about that. And that's just my perspective on it. Other people, they get even more stressed out because it's like, real quick and stuff like that.
So fast.
So I kind of want to touch upon Team Aaron really quick.
Yes.
So obviously we saw 3 boots with them. We saw Ariana, Mark, then Jeffrey, and now we have 5 people left with Ben being the new elder. So do you want to talk about any of them and what we saw this episode?
Ben is one of my favorite people I have ever watched in an org. Like, there's just so much personality within such a tiny little person. And I feel like he's actually probably really tall. He gives off tall people energy, but he's just small. And especially with him, he's 19?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's so young, and he's just so like there's a word that I can't think of, but like he just has such a great like personality and energy to watch. And I can't believe that it's like he just literally just got what he wanted. He just overthrew the elder, got voted as an elder himself, which makes him safe. He, I feel like, has Jenny in his pocket, as well as I feel like Jenny has been in her pocket, and they just haven't figured that out yet. Like they're a great duo. I love them together. As well as, who is it? Louise. Yeah. That like their whole thing that they have going on. Like I feel like, and even just the 5, like with Tasha and Jocelyn as well, like the 5 of them together just seems so great. And I just want them to stay the 5. And I just want to keep seeing Guyon go to Temple just so that way, like I can just see a little bit more moments where they're all like having fun. Like whenever Tasha was doing her little dance breakdown thing, like that was just like, honestly, like the editing of this episode was probably like my favorite out of every single episode you've ever put out.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
No problem. Like even rewatching it again tonight, I'm just like, wow, I really liked that. Like the little sound effects and even like visuals, like it just seemed like better tonight than what it had like this episode than what it had in previous. And just like including that little moment of like almost humanity in a way that it's just like, yeah, they're like that. You have what's her face laying on the couch, like dead, just trying to regain some energy. Then Tasha just having a dance party with her White Claw. Like,
yep. It's fucking great. Like when I was going through that episode, that segment I had set aside and I had no fucking clue. I was like, this is making the episode. I don't know how it's making the episode, but this is making the episode. Because the thing is like, in the like hour worth of footage that I had for their team, that was like at the tail end of that hour worth of footage. And I was just like, I can't make all this beginning stuff seamlessly go into this dance party thing. But then we have this like dramatic stuff, with the other team. But yeah, I was like, it has to make it. But yeah, I think at this point, like you said, we're about like 6.5 hours into the game. And day 1 lasted like, I think 9 hours in total. So like, Tasha at this point has been drinking her White Claws for at least a good hour or so. So she's a popping them back. And so, yeah, she was in a dance party kind of mood, and it was fucking great. It's so good.
It's like I just feel like the vibes over there are just now so much more chill that they are finally obviously not going to temple, so they actually have time to chill and to like I feel like actually get to know each other instead of like, well, guess we got to vote someone else out now. Like, can't talk about like anything other than that. So it was nice to see that little bit of them. Like they're finally like relaxing and each their own way.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to kind of move on. I think we kind of covered our bases for everything. We're going to move on to the Ember Award. So for anyone who doesn't know, the Ember Award is essentially the MVP of the episode. Everybody has their own criteria, whether it be most strategic, social, entertaining, whatever. So as per usual, I leave it up to my co-host to assign the first Ember Award. Who would you like to give your award to?
I have to give it to Ben. Even though like not that like not in the episode that much, but it's like overthrew the elder, became the elder, picked the right people for the competition, fucking killed it in the slide puzzle, and then with that got to kind of like in a sense, I guess, be a hero on his tribe, and he's safe, his entire tribe's safe, and he gave me a lot of entertainment, and it's just always a joy to watch him. So
I think that is completely fair. Yeah, it's a lot that Ben had done in such a short amount of time. For myself, I was stuck between 4 names, and I literally just erased 2 of them, and I'm struggling between these last 2. But I think at the end of the day, I'm going to give my Ember Award to Michael. The reason why is I think Michael's starting to form really good connections. We've seen many different small alliances throughout this game so far. But now they're kind of starting to be really tested and they're crumbling apart. You have Michael, who has a pretty good, clear head about everything that's going on. He wants to protect Aaron. He talks to Antonio. Together, they're trying to make this happen. And I think, while once again, I said this at the beginning of the podcast, no move is a sole move by any one player. I just think the sense of clarity and the perception and read that Michael has on other people, i.e. Josh this episode, and how Josh is giving him sketchy vibes, just a bunch of little things that I think just push him up a little bit further than some of the other people that I had in mind. So I'm going to give my Ember Award to Michael for this episode. So before we conclude the podcast, do you have any final thoughts?
I don't think so. I think I rambled on enough to where it cleared all the thoughts out of my brain.
All right, sounds good. Well, on that note, thank you, Tawni, for coming on today. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And on that note, we'll see you for the next episode.